Hello, all you alternate timeline descendants out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor.
Man, I hope you guys don't stop existing at the end of this podcast.
That's right. Especially if you've, left positive reviews or something.
Yeah.
My name is Fletcher, about to say hello is Data.
Hi.
Today we're going to recap and discuss Star Trek DS9, Season 5, Episode 22, Children of Time. Alternate title, Nitpick of the Week, the Episode.
Wow, okay. Right out the gate. Nitpick of the weeking.
Let's be clear about that. Just in case this is your first time watching Star Trek DS9, we will attempt to only discuss spoilers up through this episode of Star Trek DS9. But proceed at your own risk. Spoilers for other TV shows and movies can happen in books, video games, real life, historical events, and maybe we'll just spoil Deep Space Nine itself. Who knows? But Children of Time originally aired May 5th, 1997, Cinco de Mayo.
And as you can tell, they were strongly influenced by Mexican culture with this episode.
Right. It was written by Renee Echevarria. Story by Gary Holland and Ethan H. Kalk.
Yep. Then the funny thing about this, or about that pairing, is that the two of them never worked with each other in any way.
Oh, wow. Did they just both come up with... Is this like a Newton and Leibniz situation where they both came up with the same idea?
Well,
independently?
Yeah, a little bit. So basically, and I guess I'll get into it now, Gary Holland had the idea for all the way back in season 2, after The Collaborator, which is the one where we get like the first little indication that maybe Odo has a thing for Kira. And he was like, oh, we should have an episode where like we get into this. And so he proposed, like in season 3, he proposed this story after getting the idea from that season 2 episode. And, he was like, well, I mean, it can't just be a straightforward thing. We have to come up, like, if Odo, like, is unwilling or can't admit his feelings now, we'd have to get, like, an older Odo who's more mature, so we need some time travel. So he proposes this in season 3, except they're like, yeah, I don't know that that's the best idea, because we just did, like, past tense parts 1 and 2, or they'd actually I don't think they even aired yet, but they'd screened them for the people in charge, and they're like, we don't want that. And then they'd already greenlit The Visitor for the beginning of season 4, and so they're like, I don't think we want to do some more time travel, like so close to other time travel stories. So they kept like kind of like the idea floated out there, and they kept pushing it back. And so then it's 1994 when he pitches it. 1997 comes along, and Ethan H. Kalk pitches a very similar story. And they're like, yeah, maybe it's finally time we did that story that we've been putting off. And so they each had some of the ideas that appear in the final episode. And what Robert Hewitt Wolf says is like, yeah, we basically took both the ideas, put them in a blender, mixed it well, and then Renee came up with a really nice script off of them.
Nice. And I will say this plot device was also recently in the cartoon show Invincible.
That's
So, come on, Invincible.
Apparently there's an episode of Enterprise that has a similar similar story called like E Squared, but I don't think I've seen that episode, so.
I mean, specifically the part where someone from the future tells someone that they liked them. Anyway, and the episode was directed by Alan Croker.
Yeah, Alan Croker, we've seen him a couple times, or at least once so far. He's done 2 other episodes so far in season 5, and he has 1 yet to come. So season 5 was...
Oh, nice.
He's getting involved in DS9.
He's putting in work in season 5.
He's the guy who we talked about in one of his previous ones. He's the guy who's going to direct the series finale. So. Oh,
yeah. Cool. And Cirroc Lofton is not in this episode, and in fact, I watched through the opening credits just to make sure he's still in there. And he is. So, jumping into our recap, The Defiant is on its way back home after a week in the Gamma Quadrant. Quark isn't there because I guess the writers couldn't think of a plausible explanation for that, but everyone else is, including Odo, but not Jake. Odo, Dax, and Kira hang out in the mess hall, and Kira reveals that she and Shakar have broken up. So, that great on-screen romance of Shakar and Kira has come to an end.
It's a little bit contrived that they're just like, yeah, they broke up off screen after visiting the temple, and the prophets are like, nah, you two don't belong together. But I guess they just needed a way to get rid of him at this point.
That romance, which unfolded almost entirely in, like, offhand comments occasionally made by Kira when Shakar wasn't there.
So the note is the writing staff chose to end Kira's relationship with Shakar Edon via an off-screen breakup in this episode. While this was motivated in part due to budgetary and scheduling difficulties that had limited actor Duncan Rhaegar to only being able to appear 3 times in as many seasons, Ira Stephen Bear subsequently admitted that having Shakar become head of the Bajoran Republic in his first appearance, and then begin a relationship with Kira in his second, the writers had left themselves with nowhere else to take the character, short of him coming into conflict with Sisko, a role which they felt was better served by Kai Wynn Adami. I feel like it would have been weird to have like Sisko and Shakar start like getting into it, and then Kira has to be in the middle. Like,
well, I mean, that's the thing that Kai Wynn is already doing. So
yeah, but with Kai Wynn, Kira is like pretty firmly on Sisko's side most of the time.
Yeah.
With Shakar, it would have been a little fuzzier.
Sure. But yeah, Kira explains that she and Shakar went to the shrine and the prophets told them they weren't supposed to be together, so okay. Odo gets a look on his face as if he's trying with all his might to hold his tongue about how stupid that is.
Do you think they did that Bajoran breakup thing where you go and sleep with a bunch of other people or whatever the ceremony was? That Bashir and Lita did on Risa?
I still maintain that Bashir and Lita made that up, but hopefully. But yes, we later learned that Odo was having other thoughts. But when I was first watching this, I was just like, man, is Odo just as perplexed by that as I am? It's like, we went to church and they told us to stop going out, so...
I mean, it's such a ridiculous, like, they try to play it, like, where Dax calls it out. It's like, I mean, really? And Kira's like, hey, I believe in predestination super strongly, and because the prophets tell me how to live my life. So They try to incorporate it into her character, but I feel like it would have been almost... the explanation was almost as bad as if Kira had been like, yeah, I mean, we just can't afford to have him on the show anymore, so... And the fact that
this hasn't come up, like, she hasn't mentioned this to anyone in at least a week, kind of, I think, makes me think maybe that relationship was not super strong.
I don't know.
Anyway.
When you have a breakup like that, you don't immediately want to just go around telling everybody about it.
Sure, but I mean, she didn't tell Dax. I don't know, it's a little weird. But yeah, Odo gets all awkward and he goes off to regenerate. Up on the bridge, a guy walks around with a tray of coffee, which Captain Sisko turns down because he's trying to quit or cut down or something, setting up a completely unnecessary reveal. And kind of making you wonder, it's like, do people just regularly like walk around with trays of coffee on the bridge?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a good idea. Didn't we have an episode where it was like, no, you shouldn't bring a drink on the bridge, and then somebody spilled it? Or was that was an episode of Next Generation I'm thinking of, maybe?
I don't remember. I don't think it was Deep Space Nine, but then it happens. A thingy starts beeping.
As always happens.
Dax looks at her screen and is like, oh look, there's a thing. Everybody immediately knows what this means.
They all want to go home so bad.
Yeah, hell no, says Chief O'Brien. This is going to be some bullshit.
I mean, he's not wrong, to be fair.
Right. But Dax is like, come on, let's go look at the thing. Sisko, O'Brien, and Kira all exchange meaningful glances like, are you fucking kidding me? And Sisko's like, okay, we can go look at the thing, but if it turns out to be some bullshit, we're leaving. Then they fly to a planet that has some quantum stuff around it or something. And when they fly through the quantum stuff, Kira briefly splits into 2 Kiras, but then they get through and she's fine.
As happens.
Predictably, O'Brien announces that a bunch of stuff is broken and they're going to be stuck here for a few days. Everybody shoots death stares at Dax. Then they get a signal from the planet, which Worf scans and finds that about 8,000 people are living down there, mostly human.
Does exploring in the Gamma Quadrant ever lead to anything good?
No. Like, and on your way back, there will always be some bullshit.
Yeah. You know what? I don't think they should go anymore. I think they should just be like, screw the Gamma Quadrant, we'll stay in the Alpha Quadrant.
Yeah, and it's like, when the thing beeps, just don't go to that.
Don't do it. Everyone else on the bridge knew, but Dax was like, wait, this time, though, it might be interesting.
But yeah, a human-looking lady and a Trill-looking man come on screen and welcome the Defiant to Gaia. The man offers Sisko some Ractigino, then corrects himself. Oh no, wait. You're trying to cut down.
Bum, bum, bum. Dax
very slowly turns her head to look at Sisko, who has a look on his face like, oh my god, it's some bullshit. I fucking knew it.
Yeah.
Then they beam down to the planet where the man and the woman introduce themselves as Miranda O'Brien and Yedrin Dax. What a coincidence, says Dax.
That is such a great line. Like, wow, what a weird coincidence.
You know full well it's some bullshit, says Sisko. And the nature of the bullshit is soon explained. This planet is inhabited by the descendants of the crew of the Defiant. 2 days from now, the Defiant is going to try to leave and then wind up going back in time 200 years and then crash on the planet. Sisko looks at Dax like, yep. And then Dax looks back at him like, okay, yeah, my bad. She scans the Tom Paris Trill-looking guy and finds that he has the Dax symbiote.
Well, after he's like, hey, go ahead and scan me. You'll find the Dax symbiote.
Right.
And so I guess, like, the tricorder is like, it's Dax.
Yep.
Like,
Dax confirmed.
And then also, like, scan this person and you'll see that their DNA is very much like Chief O'Brien, even though it's many generations removed. And I'm like, I don't know that the tricorder does that.
Yeah. And
comparative DNA analysis.
Yeah, like you said, this is like, 8 generations away or something. That person is like 1/64th O'Brien or something, but whatever.
So this is some bullshit, is my point.
So, yeah, he says he remembers all of them like it was yesterday. Maddeningly, no one asks him if he remembers all this stuff, too. And that goes completely unaddressed for the entire episode.
Yeah. I considered that around that same moment, but then I kind of just forgot about it after that when it was clear they weren't going to bring it up.
Yep. He further explains that 10 years after the crash, Miles gave up on the hope of getting back to his family and married Ensign Tannenbaum, whom we have never met and never will. I assume.
Hold on. Ensign Tannenbaum. Let's see if anything ever comes of this. Oh, Ensign Rita Tannenbaum, Starfleet engineer. There's a picture of her, which appears to be... I would almost say that's a picture from one of the Next Generation movies, but hold on. She visited Quark's bar, where Pell made a business opportunity to Quark. So apparently, all the way back in Rules of Acquisition, she was hanging around.
Yeah, she was back in the Pell episode.
I bet what it is like, it's a recurring background actress. Sure. And so they're just like, yeah, she's in all these episodes, because they do have her listed in many episodes here. Huh. In 2379, Tannenbaum attended the wedding of Commander William T. Riker and Deanna Troi in Alaska on Earth.
Huh.
So she gets around.
Yeah, I guess so. Also, try not to think about the mind-boggling legality of this situation.
I mean, they went 200 years in the past. It's...
I mean, after a while, I guess just the marriage is annulled. I don't know.
Okay, so this actress is named Ivy Borg. She appears basically through all 7 seasons as like a regular background actress on Deep Space Nine. And then at some point, assistant director Paul Lawrence tells her, "You're Rita Tannenbaum, the person referred to in Children of Time." And okay then.
So that occurred much, much later.
Yeah, it's not clear from that if like she's told that in this episode or if it's some random other time, but...
And to prove that he's Dax, Yedrin brings up a memory that only Dax and Sisko would know. You remember that dancer on Paleo Station? Yep, you're Dax. No need to continue that story, says Sisko.
So you may remember the same story alluded to back in the episode Facets, when I think that's when Odo was Curzon.
Ah.
But we never, in the show, find out what happened with the dancer. Apparently, in the book The Lives of Dax, which we've discussed once or twice because it's like a collection of short stories from Dax's previous lives, which I read at some point but don't remember at all, the full story of Sisko, Dax, and the dancer is revealed.
Oh my goodness. What happened?
The note just says it's revealed. Let me see if I can find more information. I assume that this is the Curzon section of...
Presumably.
Okay, that's an section.
Who's that? I never heard of no Dax.
Oh, I didn't say Dax. Who said that? The Music Between the Notes is the name of the Curzon short story that is here. Let me see if I can find more information about it. A lovely little vignette does a lot to enhance the Curzon, Dax, and Benjamin Sisko relationship. The writer gives us a chance to witness Curzon's influence on the development of Benjamin Sisko, a young ensign stationed on Pelios. Sisko finds himself assigned to the veteran diplomat. At one point, Sisko reflects on how cleverly Curzon had trapped him with a question, forcing him to choose between offering a callow straight out of the Academy comment or something that went against Academy philosophy. Huh. Okay.
When did he screw the dancer?
Okay, yeah, this is not... I'm going to have to go back and actually read the story, apparently, because I found a review of the story, but it doesn't discuss, like, much in-depth what is actually happening in the story, so...
So yeah, anyway, then a little boy comes up to Worf and says, "Are you the son of Moog?" Worf confirms that he is, and that he can indeed kill someone just by looking at them.
Yeah, I love that he's unsure what to say for a second. He's like, "Only when I'm angry," and all the adults are like giggling behind their hands.
Armin Shimmerman got to get paid, so we see that he's used as the model for the virtual math teacher at the school. Because Dax always thought Quark would make a good math teacher, apparently.
Yeah. Yep. I kind of like the way that she talks about him, like, yeah, I'm sorry, because this is new Dax talking about what a great math teacher he'd be.
Sure.
But it was funny. The note here is that this episode aired the same day as Armin Shimmerman's first appearance on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, on which he continued as a recurring character for the next 2 seasons.
Nice.
Shimmerman said that on at least 3 occasions, he worked on both shows on the same day, getting into the makeup chair to shoot before dawn to shoot his scenes for DS9 in the morning, and then getting out of the makeup in the early afternoon and driving an hour across town to shoot scenes for Buffy late into the night.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't even at the same studio or anything.
Yeah, no. That's, I guess good on you, working actor out there.
What a pro.
And he is funny in Buffy, where he plays the principal for like the last 2 years of high school or whatever, before, spoiler for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, he gets eaten by a giant snake monster.
Oh my gosh. And then O'Brien meets a girl named Molly and learns that he is her grandfather's great-great-great-grandfather, which is an interesting way of putting that, but...
They say that, it's a family name passed down through the O'Brien line. I was like, wait, did O'Brien name like one of his new kids Molly also? Because that's fucked up. Or did that kid name one of their kids Molly, which is still kind of weird, quite honestly.
I don't think that would be as weird. It would be kind of weird if the chief was like, "You are my Molly now."
Yeah, okay. That's definitely weird. Yep.
But yeah, the chief is just like, "Yeah, great," when he hears that.
O'Brien is not here for any of this.
Right. O'Brien knew from the very beginning that this was not going to go well, and he just continues to not be all about it. So they learn a little history, including the fact that Kira died a few weeks after the crash, owing to the weird split thing that happened to her.
Yeah, her brain's messed up, and they don't have the technology to fix it.
Right. Sisko and Worf point out that if they leave and go back to Deep Space Nine, won't that erase the entire timeline and nobody on the planet will exist anymore? But Yedrin has a plan for this. You see that split thing that happened to Kira? We can make that happen to the whole ship. Then one version of the ship can go back in time and crash, and the other can go home to Deep Space Nine. Now, this whole plan is bullshit, but... what? So, like, each of them is going to split into two versions of themselves, and it's just luck whether you wind up being the one that crashes or the one that goes back home.
Well, according to him, the originals will be the ones that go home. Like, he's somehow guaranteeing that. And I mean, we know that you can copy people. It happened to Riker, so
right.
You can totally transport or clone. It's all good. But they don't just need copies. They need copies to be sent back to an exact moment 200 years in the past. So it's
yeah. And so do they have to crash? Can they just land?
No, they do have to crash, or else the past would change, and some of these people might not be. It's butterfly effect,
right? So will the fact that they like came here first not have changed things, causing a butterfly effect?
Well, it would if they weren't determined to then like recreate the accident exactly the same way.
Okay, because it seems like you're just going to wind up. So what happened? So the first time they came to the planet, was there just nobody on the planet and they didn't go down there and they stayed in orbit for a couple of days?
Unclear.
And then they tried to leave?
You would think.
Because if that happened, then, I mean, there's just no way. It's definitely going to be different this time.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, you would think that if he knew the situation, not only that that they were never going to make it back, but exactly who he was going to marry, that Chief O'Brien might not have waited 10 years to remarry in the past. Yeah. So, like, that alone, I feel like, is going to change after this experience.
And then, just, Yedrin seems to have no memory of what's going on right now. Like, or he's just being a really good actor. Like, he doesn't know that his ruse is going to get revealed and fail.
Yeah, there's no reason to... Well, and I guess he couldn't know. Because if this had happened the first time, then they wouldn't exist.
Right.
If everything had happened the same way the first time. So, yeah, there must have been nobody here the first time.
Right.
Or some other timeline. I don't know.
Yes.
This is wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff, and it never is good.
Yeah, I mean, we just get into the whole thing where it's like, all the same sperms aren't going to be hitting all the same eggs at exactly the same times. And we're going to be creating a whole new bunch of descendants, and it's going to be like a completely different third universe. And the one that exists now is going to get erased regardless, but whatever. I guess we'll just trust the rules that the show has told us. In fact, by the end of the episode, I guess we don't really know what would have really happened, so...
I mean, there's really no way to... Yeah.
Yeah. So, don't worry about any of these interesting sci-fi questions. Just think of it as a lame abortion metaphor.
Wow, okay.
So, which... I mean, that was the only, like, lesson I could get out of this, is like, is this like an abortion debate? Like, is it worth, like... committing my life for the existence of future people? But yeah, Sisko is just like, okay, whatever, let's just get this over with and get out of here. Up on the ship, we learn that Odo can't hold solid form because of the quantum stuff or something. So he has to hang out in a jar inside of a bread machine or whatever.
It is literally a bread machine. The note
nice.
is in here that, the stasis chamber is a 20th century bread machine, redressed with LEDs and other props attached.
Nice. I admire my bread machine identifying skills.
Way to go.
I've seen enough bread machines in my lifetime. Kira is doing fine because the neural degeneration that's going to kill her hasn't started yet. So, that's nice.
Yeah.
Then Kira gets a visitor. It's Odo. Now slightly wrinkly and having learned how to hold his form over the last 200 years. He immediately starts talking romantically with Kira and declares that he loves her. He's always loved her.
He comes on real strong real fast.
Right. Kira's like, okay, not quite sure how to take that. And Odo is like, well, just hang around here for the next few days before you go home. And she's like, okay, that sounds fun. We'll hang out.
Yeah. To be fair, he's like, look, I'm not trying to, like, get you to say or anything. Just spend some time with me.
Yeah.
Because, like, I've missed you for 200 years, and so if I can spend a couple days with you, then that's way better than what I have.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I'm super happy just to have this chance to, like, hang out with you.
Here, I'll take you to see your dead body, or your grave.
So yeah, down on the planet, Worf meets the sons of Moog, the descendants of Worf, some by blood, others by choice, who live the warrior life, and they don't farm. This is very important to their identity.
Yeah, Worf taught them, never farm.
Right. So they're like the Ironborn from A Song of Ice and Fire / Game of Thrones. They do not sow. They invite Worf to a feast later, and he's like, heck yeah, let's party. Yedrin tells Dax about her wedding to Worf and their long, happy marriage. Dax doesn't bring up the potentially awkward topic of how there are people that seem to have Trill DNA, but no Klingon DNA, and vice versa.
Definitely occurred to me.
I mean...
I think Yedrin may have been full of shit. Is
It's like, oh, yeah, go back in time. You'll marry Worf. Everything will be happy.
Or he might have been like, look, if you do the math on how many women and how many men are on the ship, you'll see that, like, with 48 people to create, like, a stable genetic pool, I mean, we had to do some swinging. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, you need as much genetic diversity as possible.
I almost feel like we've established before in like the Next Generation that this would not be enough people to. Yeah, I don't know,
because it was the episode where they went to that colony planet or something, right? So Bashir, in typical Bashir fashion, is getting all the way into this.
He's so weirdly into it. Yeah,
I mean, he knows he knows who he's going to marry, and he's going to ask her out later when they get back to Deep Space Nine.
I mean, why not? I guess.
O'Brien, as we've said, is definitely not into it and wants to go home to his family. Then Odo takes Kira on a romantic date to her own grave. She's uneasy about the Defiant duplication plan, not because there's a 50-50 chance that she'll get stuck being the one who has to die, but because it clashes with her personal beliefs that everyone has only one destiny. Odo, for his part, is all about it, knowing that Kira is going to get to go home and live a full life, and there will be a version of himself that doesn't have to lose her. Kira notices that Odo is very different now, much more personable and outgoing. And he says that if she gives him a chance, her Odo will grow as well.
I felt in the scene like a line that should have been coming. It's like, I mean, probably not in the same ways that I have, because that'll be a very different situation.
Right.
But
yeah, it's he'll be on his own journey, but he is capable of becoming a person like me within 200 years.
You just gotta be patient,
right? And I guess also we learned that Odo is capable of living for 200 years. That's an interesting fact.
Yeah, we did not know anything about Odo's lifespan before now. So.
Even with no access to the link or anything.
Yeah.
Although, okay, this suddenly occurred to me.
Mm-hmm.
They're unable to communicate with the Alpha Quadrant because the wormhole hasn't been discovered yet.
Right.
But surely they could communicate with the 22nd century Dominion or something, right?
Quite possibly. I don't know that you would want to.
Yeah, that's true. But it seems like they'd be interested to learn that, like, there's a changeling living down there.
Yeah, but, like, at what cost?
True.
Like, they'll show up and conquer you if you draw their attention, potentially, so
maybe they considered that, but they were like, let's not even mess with those guys. It's like, should we contact the Wadi? And it's like, no. We'll just stay here. So Sisko is playing some catch with the planet kids when Dax comes up with some bad news. The sensor logs Yedrin gave them from the crash are fake.
It's a fake.
Apparently the fact that he has all of Dax's knowledge and memories did not give him the advantage he needed to fake them so she couldn't figure it out.
Yep. Fail.
Yep. Bottom line, the plan is fake, and they're just going to wind up back in time and crashing. Again, does he not have memories of all this? But whatever. They confront Yedrin, who's like, okay, you got me. I tried to con you so I wouldn't stop existing. But really, this is all your fault, Dax, for falling for the classic "the thing is beeping" trap.
Yep.
Yedrin pleads that isn't it worth Kira's life to save this blossoming society of 8,000 people? Sisko is like, maybe, but also I just want to go home, so that's what we're going to do. Kira and Worf watch some kids playing ball, and Kira's feeling a little conflicted about erasing 8,000 people from existence. Worf kind of tries to pretend to care, but not really.
Well, he has a way of, like, because Kira and O'Brien get into, or almost get into, like, a religion debate.
Uh-huh.
Because she's like, oh, the prophets will take care of your family. And he's like, look, no offense, but I don't believe in your prophets. So
Right.
I'm not going to rely on that. But Worf has a way of, like, siding with the religion side of things.
Sure.
We've seen that a couple times, even though in a previous, he's like, no, Klingons killed our gods. So,
Well, I think...
but, like, spirituality is still, like, something he puts stock in.
I mean, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but I think something about that just really appeals to his... It's like, this fulfilling your destiny sounds very Klingon. I don't know.
Sure.
But yeah, Worf goes and he meets up with the Sons of Moog and learns that the feast has been canceled. Worf is like, no, I totally get it. But good on you guys for keeping up the Klingon stuff. That really means a lot to me. And they're like, okay, well, while you're here, can you please stab us so we can get into Stovacor? The scriptures are pretty clear that you can't get in if you get erased from history because of time travel shenanigans.
I mean, I almost believe that that's something that you might include in your in the future. Yeah.
Worf is like, okay, sure, but let's do that tomorrow. Kira and Odo return to her grave, and Kira decides that she can't live with going home if it means erasing 8,000 people. She takes this back to the group. Worf, as we said, is all for embracing destiny and going back in time. But O'Brien makes some compelling arguments, like, I don't care about these people, let's just go home.
I want to go back to my family.
Right.
And you have no right to tell me that I can't.
He's very clear. He's like, I do not know these people, I do not care.
Yep.
And then Sisko is like, yeah, we're going home, end of story. They go back down to the planet where they find everyone is getting ready for planting day. So they all pitch in and help the planet people with one last planting day to plant some crops that will never be harvested.
So apparently the planting scenes are filmed at Amundsen Ranch near Ventura, California. But on the day of the shoot, there were gale force winds. Equipment trucks had to be used as wind blocks. But it was also so cold that the crew all were wearing snow jackets. The actors had to wear shirt sleeves because it was supposed to be a beautiful day. And between takes, the actors had to be sprayed down to make it look like they were sweating.
Wow.
So it sounds very unpleasant.
Well, it looked good. So
yeah, right? Yeah.
It all showed on camera. So O'Brien doesn't care at first about planting day, but he gets dragged into it too. He's like, no, I'm not even going to do your dumb planting day. Let's just go home.
It is a fun moment where it's like he had to personally bring Sisko these reports that Sisko requested and let him know that the repairs were done. And then that little girl's like, hey, aren't you going to help? He's like, no, I'm busy.
Right.
Like, you don't look busy, which he totally, like, he's doing his job. He brought the thing here for his commanding officer to see. But, and so he probably could have gotten away with it, except Sisko's like, ha, that kid's funny. Better get to work, O'Brien.
Yep. So, and then Worf brings the Sons of Moog to help out too, and tells them that time is their enemy, and they need to get everything planted before sundown to defeat time. So, that's like a loophole. You can use that to get into Stovacor.
I mean, time isn't going to kill them, but...
Well, I don't know. They think it's good enough, so...
Yeah...
Then O'Brien has a heartbreaking interaction with young Molly where she's like, oh, I can't wait to harvest these crops and eat the bread and stuff. And he decides he can't go through with it, and somehow he convinces everyone to go back in time and crash. Odo begs Kira not to do it and asks if he had asked her out, could things have been different? She says maybe.
Yeah, she's like, I don't know, maybe.
But this gives Odo a sliver of hope that dooms 8,000 people. They program the autopilot to match the trajectory that will send them back in time, but then it doesn't happen. They veer away at the last minute and leave the planet. Someone hacked into the autopilot, and then they scan the planet and find that everything is gone. Sisko and Dax figure it must have been Yedrin, even though that doesn't sound like him at all. But
well, yeah, he lied to you specifically to avoid what happened. So
lots of stuff about Yedrin, as we've pointed out, doesn't make sense, so maybe. But yeah, they're just like, whatever, it's not worth worrying about.
Yeah, what happened happened. We're done.
Yeah. Dax muses that all those people they met never existed. Well, they'll live on in our memories or something, says Sisko, who is definitely never going to think about these people again.
What were their names?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Was something Steve O'Brien or something? I don't know.
We didn't see any Siskos, so,
That's true.
Maybe no one would marry him. Or swing with him, or whatever happened. I don't know.
Right, yeah. Again. Well, many questions have gone unanswered. Present-time Odo comes to talk to Kira and says that the other Odo came and linked with him. So, think about that. Like, was that a sexual experience? Anyway, he knows everything, and he figures both he and Kira need some time to process things. Oh, also, it was Odo who hacked the autopilot and erased his entire society.
Just BT dubs.
But he did it because he loved Kira. Somehow that does not make Kira feel better.
No, that probably makes her feel worse. Knowing that,
Right.
it wasn't some, so any other reason. It was specifically for her that 8,000 people died.
Yep. She seems pretty upset by that, actually. But the Defiant heads home, and everyone swears to never go look at the beeping thing again. In fact, let's just not go to the Gamma Quadrant anymore. The end.
Yeah. So, apparently, in the original version, it was going to be Yedrin who caused the destruction of the colony.
Uh-huh.
But Ira Stephen Bear says he felt this was a missed opportunity. It didn't create any conflict between any of the characters. And as such, he suggested that it be Odo. Some of the writers were like, oh, wait, that's way too dark a thing for one of our regulars to do. Especially the morally rigid Odo. But Bear argued that sense of unexpected darkness was exactly the point. Bear was always keen to take any opportunity to darken the show, and the characters in un-Star Trek-like ways, such as Kira refusing to apologize to Solar and Prin in The Darkness and the Light, or Worf actually fulfilling Kurn's request to impale him with a dagger in Sons of Moog.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty interesting learning that Odo is willing to kill 8,000 people for Kira, so...
Yep. He says, if it had been the original series or the Next Generation, they probably would have made it the scientist who did it, and there'd be no harm, no foul. Everyone's hands would have remained clean. But that wasn't a consideration here.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise it kind of almost is like just a Star Trek Next Generation episode. But... Honestly,
I feel like the Next Generation episode would have ended with them figuring out a way to do that duplicate plan so that everyone could live.
Yeah, or... yeah, something like that. Or it's like Data would have been like, I have devised a method to, isolate this planet in a pocket universe.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
It's like, we'll somehow detach it from the rest of time so that us not going back in time won't affect what happened here.
I mean, no shade on Dax, but I feel like Data and Geordi would have figured this out.
Yeah, we don't often see Dax, getting into the deep science, technobabble solutions.
Right.
Maybe that's a intentional decision, but just doesn't make Dax seem like the best science officer. Yeah. Apparently, neither Nana Visitor nor Rene Auberjonois were very happy with how their characters were written in this episode.
I think that's fair.
Visitor said, I'm not a huge fan of the whole romantic storyline. I think it's much more interesting to have a real deep friendship without it becoming physical. I would have liked Odo and Kira to stay that way. I did think the episode was brilliant, but it isn't one of my favorites because I wasn't crazy about my part in it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's like, Mulder and Scully. It works because they're not romantic until they are.
Yeah, until they are. Renee says he allows an entire civilization to disappear in a blink. He could rationalize it because of his love, but it's a big thing. It's tricky. I'm still not sure about it or what kind of message it sent to the audience.
Yeah. That's a good point. I'm not quite sure what message is being sent with this episode.
Kill everyone for love.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like it does say something about, because on some level, even despite being raised in this solid society, Odo really has a different viewpoint on things. that in some ways I think does mirror like how the founders think about things. The founders, like he seems to have inherited they call out like this need for like order and things that they have, but I'm also not sure that, and we've called out like his kind of authoritarianism streak where he'd like to, you know, put cameras in every room and
right.
declare martial law on the promenade and stuff in order to keep everything nice and peaceful, which is kind of what the founders are doing with the Dominion. It's like, we want this whole thing to be peaceful and for people to leave us alone, so we created an oppressive super soldier race to take care of that for us. And so I feel like it's almost it's like an extension of that Odo is like, yes, 8,000 like solids to be sacrificed for the thing that I super care about. Absolutely.
Right. So that an alternate version of me might get a date with the girl he likes.
And I don't know, maybe I'm taking that too far and I don't want to make Odo sound evil, but I feel like there's some echoes of the founders there.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. I think Odo has a dark side for sure.
Let's see. Ronald D. Moore says, it tells the audience how deeply this man can love. He can love to the point that he'll sacrifice an entire world for a woman.
Again, is that deep love or is that like changeling psychopathness?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard for me because I'm like, there is like this thing that, you know, love conquers all. I was trying to think of the Latin for a minute, but I couldn't do it. And if it was like his child, I could almost see it more, because it's like, if you won't like knock down the world to protect your child and their life, then what kind of parent are you?
Sure.
And so maybe it shouldn't be that different with like the woman he loves but
maybe.
I mean, you did point out that it's basically like, yeah, so that maybe he can someday get a date. Not even him, like a different version of him. So it just seems so petty.
Right. Or maybe he just really cares about her. I don't know.
But at the same time, you say that, and Ronald D. Moore says the same thing, but it's like, you love her so much that you are going to take away her agency to decide, because she's decided, I want to sacrifice myself for these 8,000 people. And you're like, no. I love you too much to let you make such a stupid decision. Let me go ahead and make that decision for you.
Yeah.
So it doesn't speak very well, regardless of Odo. And I can see why I can see both of their points, the actors, when they're just like, I hadn't really thought about Kira's or the Nana Visitor's, what she said much before now, because I've seen the show. To me, like, this story, this really long story playing out of like the Odo Kira relationship is just a natural part of the show. But now that I think about it, I'm like, you know, she has a good point. It would have been a very different thing to have like this be a platonic friendship. But we already sort of have that in, like, you don't expect like Cisco and Dax to hook up. They have this platonic,
right?
Although they did in that one in the mirror.
He's just going to hook up with alternate versions of her under false pretenses.
So maybe it makes more sense to have this relationship be different from all the other ones, because you had Bashir and Dax / Quark and Dax, where it's like they're basically throwing themselves at her and she's just like, and then you have the Worf and Dax romantic relationship, you have the Cisco and Dax platonic, and really Cisco and Kira are kind of platonic, but they're not close friends. Right. They're, you know, work acquaintances or whatever. So maybe having this like long burn secret, like, maybe it's a good thing to mix things up on the show and not have it be just another platonic male female friendship. Sure. But I don't know.
Yeah, and like the Cisco Dax friendship, like, that would feel totally weird if they like got together. I mean, but also partially because like in his eyes, she's like the old man that
Yep.
mentored him and everything. But just like it would also feel weird to us, the audience, that it would be like kind of like a betrayal of that relationship or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, I totally see what she's talking about when she says that. So you got more stuff, or
there's one more note.
All right,
and it's I saved the juiciest piece of trivia for last.
Oh, excellent!
This episode is the first of any Star Trek episode to feature the use of a freestanding ladder.
Wow!
Yeah,
incredible.
I didn't even notice where in the episode this ladder was, but it's there.
No, I saw that ladder. I was like, oh my god, I've never seen a ladder on Star Trek before.
Revolutionary.
Or I was like, surely that's a fixed ladder. But then somebody picked up the ladder and moved it. And I was like, oh my goodness. This is... You know, Gene Roddenberry was always talking about wanting to do a freestanding ladder in Star Trek, but...
Yeah, he could just never get there.
I mean, it wasn't, you know, the time was never right to see that on TV. And yeah. So finally, they have had the guts to put that in a Star Trek episode. Wow. Yeah. I think it really says a lot about our society that it took that long to put a freestanding
the freestanding ladder, yep,
on TV.
We learned so much about ourselves,
right,
and the world.
Yeah, I was glad they finally decided to tackle that issue. I mean, you know, nowadays you see freestanding ladders all the time, but it was, you know, pioneering episodes like this that really opened the door for that freestanding ladder representation.
I'm not sure when the last time was that I saw a freestanding ladder, actually.
Like in real life or on TV?
No, I mean on TV.
Oh, yeah. It's like, well, it depends on what you count as a freestanding ladder. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
Is the one that unfolds and stands up like a tripod count as a freestanding ladder? Or
I would probably count it as such, but let's see what Google says about freestanding ladder. Yes, that is the first thing that pops up, is that kind of ladder.
Okay.
When I Google freestanding ladder.
Anyway, time for reviews, I'd say.
Okay. Well, how did you feel about Children of Time?
Children of Time. So, all right, here's my thoughts. Because it's time to do the review.
Yep.
So, I mean, I do always enjoy seeing like a next-gen style sci-fi story sometimes. But somehow I feel like this one feels a little out of place for where we are in the show right now. It is good to see the ensemble, except for Quark. That's something we've been complaining about a lot. Renee Echevarria, I've always said, I think is my favorite Deep Space Nine writer. And this, I think for sure, is for what the episode is really well written. Especially, I liked the last planting scene. I thought that was really good. But overall, I just think there's something deeply unsatisfying or even maddening about this episode that I can't necessarily put my fingers on. Perhaps related to the fact that every single thing makes no sense. And something about the premise just annoys me. Like even if it made sense, I think it would still annoy me. Like just this not even next. It feels like a Voyager episode. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
This seems like something that would happen to Voyager, and it would be one of my favorite Voyager episodes. So I don't know. You know, like I said, it's really well written, and actually, there's a lot of like really beautiful shots and stuff. Like
there are,
and just like overall, the directing is really good. Like the camera always seems to be in exactly the right place. Everything, just, you know, where people are standing, how people are moving and interacting always seems right. Like, and there's just a bunch of beautiful like shots and stuff. Like, you know, when they did that like Kira and Odo with the grave thing, like, you know, they clearly like filmed that at like, what do they call it, golden hour or whatever. It looks really good. You know, the planning stuff looks good, even though apparently it was freezing. So, from a lot of technical aspects, this is a really good episode. But like I said, I can maybe understand how somebody would love this episode. Like, you know, we're not here to yuck people's yum or whatever, but I just think there's just something not right about this episode. So, like, it's not horrible, but I'm gonna have to give it a lieutenant.
Okay.
So,
fair enough.
So anyway, what do you think?
Well, okay, I'll start with the good. I do love that we're back to the ensemble, and I think that all of our main actors really did some good work here. Yeah. Like, I everybody had a little bit of something, and I think that it was all pretty good. Cisco had his, like, fun moments with, like, he had the moment with the baby where he's, like, talking to the baby, and I thought he was really cute. And Renee Auberjonois got to play some very different sort of Odo, but very emotional, and I think he did a good job. Kira, especially at the end with, like, regular Odo and Kira, like, I could feel the gut punch that Kira is feeling of, like, 8,000 people were basically killed for me. It hurts her, and I can feel it. So, and O'Brien, with his perspective on it, he does, you feel him, and you get what he's going through. And so all of that was good. I don't think the guest actors did a stellar job for the most part. The Klingons felt very, and maybe it was intentional, but they were very monotone and stilted. And with the exception of maybe Yedrin, he was okay. And Molly was pretty good. But other than that, everybody, all the guests, the guest actors mostly, I was not impressed by.
Except for the fact that he bears a distracting resemblance to Tom Paris.
You said that, and I went and looked at his picture. I'm like, maybe I see it a little. I don't think I see it very much. So all that's good. Even Julian gets, who you don't even realize is here for the first few minutes of the episode, but when he shows up, he really hams it up and has Julian but fun with it. Yeah, which it was great. So yes, they did a good job. I don't like the story. And probably a large part of it is, as you said, none of it makes sense. Right. All of it is kind of overdone, and with the exception of like a couple of bits, like I like that we finally bring into the open Odo's feelings for Kira. They in an earlier episode they were like, oh, Odo has moved on basically, and at that point there may not have been an intention to ever come back this way, but I like that as part of the continuing evolution of these characters. That was good. Although, comparing it to as we pointed out, the stupid breakup bit, it was like, really? You're just going to put, okay, whatever.
I mean, might as well, whatever.
And so, there's a couple of good beats like that, and like I said, like the ending bit with Kira, and there's a couple of those good story beats, but other than that, it really just felt like a lackluster story. And I like it feels like a Voyager episode. I'm like, you know what? It kind of does. It kind of feels like one of those bad Voyager episodes. And I think that we pull it off because in some ways because the cast on this show acts it so well that it better than probably the Voyager cast would have pulled off a similar story. So I think it's going to go. It's definitely going to go below the line for me. I'm just trying to decide how far below the line. Like it has the good stuff, and I'm so happy. And I talked about that link last time about how we just been going so long without like getting the crew together and doing like a Starfleet type story. That alone, the fact that yes, we're finally doing that. And we're coming back from this long series of like single character focus things outside of, and it wasn't even, it was like single characters that weren't even like Starfleet for the most part, and that it didn't feel like a Star Trek or Federation centered thing. So now it does, even though it's some random planet in the Gamma Quadrant. It still feels like a Star Trek episode. So in appreciation of that, I think I'm going to call it like a lieutenant instead of going down to like lieutenant junior grade.
All right. Yeah, and yeah, I even forgot to mention that. Like the alternate Odo was, cool to see. And, they did some really cool, subtle, alternate Odo makeup and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much that, like, elevates this episode. Like, especially I think the writing. I think Renee Echevarria has this really good talent for identifying and cutting to the emotional core of a story. And I think a lot of what he did in this episode was really good. It's just what it's in service of, I just can't get behind. So,
well, and on that topic, I think that I kind of agree with Ira Stephen Bear that having one of our like main characters do something this dark is like an interesting place to take this.
Sure.
And like it does make you think, like, wow, Odo had like that in him. It makes you, and we went down that rabbit hole and discussed like what does that say about him and stuff. But that makes him a more interesting character. So on that level, like the writing is good. It's just the core of the thing.
Yeah.
You can only gild it so much when the what you are gilding is not great.
Yeah. And I think another thing is that there's just something familiar about this premise. Like, it's a moral dilemma and a lot of people are going to be affected or something. And it just feels a little, like, at this point in Star Trek, a little kind of like worn down or something. And I don't think that this dilemma is especially noteworthy or unique or whatever. So, and I'm sure we've done things when people deciding not to do something would change the future or whatever. And can't think of any examples, but it just feels really familiar. So anyway, title review. What do you think of the title?
I'm sorry. I think in Time's Arrow, if they decided not to do something, it would have changed the future. Because but anyway.
Well, I mean, Time's Arrow did some kind of clever stuff, but
well, that's true. But I'm just saying, like, if they decided not to follow up on this mysterious whatever it was, then it never would have happened in the first place. And so
that's true.
I think actually Children of Time is a perfect title for the episode. Like you say that one and I know what we're talking about. It's a time travel thing and it has to do with like I mean I wouldn't say it has to do with children. It has to do with like the descendants of like Sure. It fits for me. I don't know that I feel like it's particularly clever. We're not punning on anything or anything like that, but it's relevant and I remember that it goes where it goes. So Sure. I think it's a pretty good title actually.
I mean, it's not clever in a funny way, but it's kind of like clever in a oh yeah, that's a good title kind of way.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't necessarily know that I find it that memorable, but it has a really classic feel to it. I feel like, which is really which I like. So overall, pretty good title, I think.
For some reason, it makes me think of the children of Tama, who are, a race or whatever. But
oh yeah, those are the guys who they can only talk in metaphors.
Right.
I just kept thinking of that movie, Children of Men. I kept almost accidentally saying that, but so anyway, so I guess we can wrap it up there.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. If you like this discussion, maybe you'll like our discussion of what's a good one.
I mean, this episode feels kind of like Meridian.
Yeah,
call it that,
I mean,
that's not a good one.
I mean, you go listen to our review of that, but I don't listen to our review of that if you like that episode. I don't know if anybody does like that episode, but yeah. So yeah, go listen to that. Go listen to any of those like Gamma Quadrant episodes. I don't know. Whatever. You can find all our past episodes or possibly future episodes if you're listening to this in the future, wherever you're listening to this. If you want to leave us a comment, you can do that on YouTube. If you want to listen to Data's other podcast, The Sanderlanche, you can do that. We haven't plugged that in a while.
Oh, yeah.
So
if you like Brandon Sanderson, go check it out.
And you can sign up for his Patreon and, give him money.
Sure.
Oh, no, he doesn't want your money. Never mind. So, my name is Fletcher. About to say goodbye as Data.
See ya.
We look forward to seeing you for our next discussion, but remember, don't stand between me and the self-linking.
Oh. know. For some reason, I was thinking like link, like a internet link, but no, I'm following.
Yeah. You don't want to stand between me and self-linking. It's gross.